Joining me now, House of Representatives member Republican Sheri Gilligan. She's from Cumming. Representative Gilligan, great to have you with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, tell us a little bit about the committee hearing today on Zoom. I put it on our Facebook page if people want to log into that. It was kind of hastily called. I talked to a lot of reps last night that were not on the committee that didn't know anything about it. Do you know what the purpose of it is? And I understand Raffensperger is going to weigh in. Can you shed a little light on that for us, Sheri?
It's really sad that I have very, very little light that I can shed. Found out that it was going to be a hearing, and I'm trying to even remember where I saw it. I know. A fellow legislator put it out on Facebook. So one of the representatives put out on Facebook that they want to get to the truth. Other than that, I probably would not have known about it. Typically, we will receive a courtesy, hey, here's the calendar, and I just haven't seen the calendar that put this particular meeting on there. There is one agenda. It has 4 people coming in to speak. So it's Secretary of State Raffensperger, Gabriel Sterling, the Voting System Implementation Manager, Chris Harvey, who is the Elections Division Director, and then Ryan Germany, who is the legal counsel for the Secretary of State. That's it. No testimony from others that I can see on this.
There was some conjecture today by one of your colleagues that this was called hastily and not put out because they wanted to respond to the Senate report that Senator Gilligan put out, and that it, of course, had gotten up to the White House and various national figures were tweeting it out. And they said, well, the House had to respond to this, so they hastily put this together. But there's no affidavits. There's nobody else coming in except these 4. So are they being grilled, or are they coming in to give their defense?
That's a great question, and we won't know the answer until we see it at 9 when it unfolds. I find it strange that we would have a hearing so rapidly called that we didn't get a whole lot of information about. We had wanted, I'm not on that particular committee, the committee had wanted the Secretary of State's office to come when they had their hearing. I believe that was last week. Mm-hmm. They've all blurred together now. And unfortunately, the Secretary of State, nobody from his office came and spoke at that particular hearing. Now, they had gone earlier to the Senate hearing, but had not appeared at the House hearing. So,
why?
Yeah.
Why, Sheri?
Great question. You're asking me the motivation of somebody who does and doesn't do what you expect them to do. I don't know why. I don't know if they believed that they had answered all of the questions that needed to be answered at the Senate hearing and therefore did not need to come to the House to just reiterate what they had already said in the Senate. I don't know. I do know that Secretary Raffensperger is a good man who I believe is getting bad advice. Mm-hmm. I think that it would have been smart for him or someone from his office to come and be in front of the House, because we have different members in the House. We will ask different questions. It would have been wise, in my opinion, to do that, but I'm not giving advice to him. I'm not on his staff. I just feel like he's following bad advice.
Okay, well, he certainly doubled down on the bad advice. Representative Gilligan, you would have to admit that. I mean, you get bad advice, and if you keep doubling and tripling down on it, eventually you take ownership of it, right?
Oh, I didn't say he doesn't have ownership of it now. I'm just saying he really needs to find better advisors.
Well, he needs to do something, and the first thing he needs to do is own up to the nightmare that went on November 3rd, because you really have 2 issues here. You have the November 3rd issue, and by the way, we're with Sheri Gilligan, House member, Georgia State House. She's a member of the House of Representatives, and she is from Cumming, Georgia. Her state senator, Greg Dalzell, has been on our show several times. So, Sheri, let's just get to the bottom line here. The House committee that's having this hearing didn't really put it out there. No one knew about it. You didn't get the normal advance notice you have. So that's a red flag, and thanks for sharing that. We could really find nothing on it. I called maybe 5, 6 House reps last night. I didn't get a hold of anybody on the committee, but everybody that I called, including yourself, and thanks for coming on, knew nothing about it and said that was odd. Normally, like you're saying, they get some kind of advance notice. Of course, the House committee has no subpoena power and nobody's under oath. So the question becomes, are we ever going to get to the bottom of this?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Now, just to back up a little bit, the House hearing could have had subpoena power had the chairman requested it and the speaker granted subpoena power. So committee chairman in the state House and in the state Senate can request subpoena power. But it has to be granted by the presiding officer, which would be the Speaker of the House in the House, obviously, and the Lieutenant Governor in the Senate.
So the chairman of the committee could have requested it. Who is the chairman? Just off.
That would be Shaw Blackman.
That's right, Shaw Blackman. Okay. So Shaw Blackman could have requested subpoena power, and that could have been granted by Speaker Ralston.
That is my understanding of how subpoena power and the powers granted to a chairman, yes.
So neither of that was implemented. And in the Senate for that hearing, Gilligan, who was, I think, the chairman of that subcommittee, Gilligan could have requested it, and Jeff Duncan could have granted it. He's the lieutenant governor, right?
Right. It could have been done. Now, wait. The hearing where Gilligan was, in a way, presiding, I believe that was Judiciary, and that is actually chaired by Jesse Stone.
That's right. Stone was not there. Gilligan chaired it. Stone didn't want to even have the hearing, so they kind of did a rogue one. So they really didn't even have the chairman, so forget. And, of course, Duncan's not going to give him subpoena power because they want this whole thing to go away. Unbelievable.
Well, now, I would like to see ultimately that the legislative branch actually get its power back. I would like to see that there's a better balance of power between the executive, judicial, and legislative branches here in the state of Georgia. Right now, the legislative branch is by far the weakest. We have our executive in presiding daily over the Senate. That is not a dig at Lieutenant Governor Duncan. That is just the fact. We have the executive presiding over the legislative branch. We don't have that in the U.S. Senate. Can you imagine every single day that it would have been presided over by Vice President Pence instead of who's the leader? McConnell, whoever is the leader. but you see what I'm saying? It's just why would we do that in the state of Georgia? We need to get our powers back because we're the ones closest to the people. And right now we are definitely overwhelmed by the executive branch.
Tell me about this 91 signatures that was needed to call a special session, not 3/5, 50% plus one, just around the electors. Just tell us a little bit about that. Is that something that you were in favor of trying to do?
I signed that. I signed that petition. I was definitely in favor. There are lawyers on all sides of this argument, but I've always joked that if there are 2 lawyers in a room, there are no less than 3 opinions on any matter. So we know that there are lawyers who are saying, well, the U.S. Constitution does have plenary powers. That's right. And we do, as a legislative branch, have those plenary powers to delegate or decide how our electors will be chosen. Mm-hmm. Then the Georgia Constitution says you can call a special session, but it calls 3/5. Mm-hmm. Of course, in the House, that would be out of 180 members, 105 people have to, no, 108. 108 have to sign. And we have 105 Republicans, by the way.
Right,
today.
So you couldn't get to the 3/5, and they certainly could never get to 3/5 in the Senate. So that was never an issue. But you were one of the 30 that signed on to the let's call it the Senate petition that originated there. Beach, Ligon, Burt Jones, and Dolezal. I'm sorry, Greg Dolezal. They only got 12 or 13 people to agree to sign on to that. I think 13. Somebody said if they got 28, they would sign on. So I'll give them that. But you only got 30 people. Were you surprised at that? Did you think you'd get more?
I was hoping we would get more. It was also a very rushed effort. The petition came out late, and it seemed like we were a little bit, bamboozled, I guess. Not bamboozled, that's the wrong word, but we were just dysfunctional. There's a better word. So
I like bamboozled better, but go ahead.
Well, the biennial training was going on in Athens. So every other year when we have an election, obviously our senators and representatives go to get training. Because of virtual, COVID, we could choose to do virtual. I chose to do virtual as opposed to going to Athens and spending a weekend there. So I could watch online. Therefore, we had to have some people doing it through DocuSign virtually, and then we had some people signing a physical piece of paper. There was a disconnect in communication. I think it would have been better if we'd have just done it all virtually, because we need the people who are not returning to be the ones to sign on. A new incoming representative-elect or senator-elect has no say in this particular matter because they are not currently sworn in under oath, the person in the office. So it would have been better if we'd have done it all online, but that's not the way we started it. So it got muddy.
Right.
That was part of it.
Right.
But I have seen a lot of people who like to bluster, but then they don't put their name on something. And it's much harder to put your name on something and to be on record.
It's interesting, Sheri Gilligan. By the way, Sheri Gilligan with us, House member, Georgia, State House, Cumming, Georgia. That's about 30 miles from North Fulton, up 400. Sheri, it's interesting. I had Jeff Jones on at the 7:30 hour, and he said the same thing. He said there's talk, and then there's a signature. And he said the signature is when the rubber hits the road and the talk stops and you have to step up. Sheri, is there any way this petition can get re-engaged? I know the president called up the speaker. We did a story on it. I don't want to rehash that. Is there any way this can get re-engaged?
We would obviously have to draft a brand new petition because the petition states the date that you will convene and what you will be doing. Well, that date is behind us. So naturally, we would have to start all over again with 0 signatures.
Who was the person who drafted it? Who was the ringleader?
I would say it was one of the 4 in the Senate, and we had a copied version for the House, and I believe that was Senator Gilligan, but I don't want to say for sure because I'm not 100% on that.
All right, I'm going to get to the phone lines. We've got time for one phone call before we get to the top of the hour. Sheri Gilligan with us. By the way, Representative Gilligan, thanks for coming on today. You were absolutely enlightening and great. And I had heard about you from several people, and you were under-advertised. You're even better than they said you were, to be honest. Let's get to...
You're blowing smoke up my skirt now.
Can you say that on the air? Let's get to...
I just did.
Let's get to Anita in Dublin. On line 1, Anita, you're with John and Representative Sheri Gilligan. Go ahead, Anita. Oh, by the way, Anita, thank you. I always tell this on the air. I was in Georgia. I've been here 6 weeks. I was there 3 days, and Anita called in, and I was like going from city to city, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I was there 3 days, and Anita called in, and she said, thank you for giving a voice to us. I am silent. No, she said, we are silent no more. And I wrote that down. I put it on top of I pasted it on my computer, taped it on my computer. And every day when I'm like, oh my God, I got to drive another 3 hours and go to another Georgia city, God knows where, I'd see that. And that would inspire me. But she's on now. Anita, you're with John Fredericks and Sheri Gilligan. You're live.
Okay, so what I really wanted to do is call and give some kudos to Sheri Gilligan, kind of. Remember, I had a problem with my ballot verification, and my husband we used to live in Forsyth County, and Sheri was our representative. So he got in touch with Sheri, and she was the only representative that has offered us any assistance with that issue. And although we haven't gotten an acceptable resolution for that yet, she did offer to help. And I don't know if it's because I'm in a county that's not contested, but nobody seems to care about my ballot.
And I'm sorry about that. We all care about your ballot. We all care about your vote. We never want to disenfranchise anyone.
Well, it is a little disheartening because, you know, am I going to go vote January 5th? Yes, I am. And hopefully it doesn't, you know, the same problem doesn't arise. But,
yeah, I agree. Now, I voted early. I voted the very first day that early voting happened here in Forsyth County. My husband and I just said, let's go, let's get it done. I am not going to take the risk of a January snowstorm or ice storm or any other kind of, I'm going to make sure my vote counts and my vote's in.
Well, I did vote. The problem is I did vote early. So,
right.
You know, and then it came out like they had put it in as an absentee ballot, and then they canceled it, and then they re-put it in, and then they canceled it. I have no idea. You know, I just don't know if it counted or not.
Well, you know, the thing that concerns all of us, Representative Gilligan and Anita from Dublin, is what Bill Ligon said, Senator Ligon said to me on the phone yesterday, which is, if you read this report, November 3rd was like voting in a third world country. It was a complete joke. And he said they're doing the same thing on January 5th, only worse. He said the fraud has gotten bigger. It's expanded. They're emboldened. They've got RVs running around Atlanta with mobile voting units on it, which are illegal. There's no chain of custody. They added 20 drop boxes. They flooded the zone with more absentee ballots. Somebody found them at a Starbucks the other day. I mean, this stuff goes on. Here's my question, Sheri Gilligan. We understand what the limitations are. Are you or is someone in the House able to draw up another petition and get this circulated ASAP in order to get the 91 signatures and put pressure on the Senate to convene? Can you do that? Or someone?
I can definitely draft a petition. Getting the 91 signatures, that's going to be the issue.
That's where you're going to need a speaker.
Just always will be.
But if the speaker said sign it, he could probably get 91, right?
Actually, yeah. You know, I believe that he has enough very good followers, and he has enough clout that absolutely, if he got behind it, there's no way we would not get to 91. But if he stays neutral and then everybody has to stay with their own, then it's not going to happen. He would actually absolutely have to come out 100% in favor of. Being neutral would not work. Obviously, being against it would damage it beyond repair. We would not be able to get it if he was opposed to it, I don't think.
Or if he said he was for it and then opposed it behind the scenes. This is not Sheri Gilligan speaking. This is what I said in our story on GeorgiaNews.com. You don't have to comment on that. You can go to GeorgiaNews.com. Hey, Sheri Gilligan, we're out of time. I want to thank you for being with us. Great segment.